Hey there, I'm Chris, host of the Smart Author podcast. In this episode, I speak with Damon Burton of SEO National. We discussed how he's been able to explode his agency by giving his book away for free. I think learning and understanding more about book gifting strategies is really important because it can help you rapidly expand your reach and authority. If you're currently stuck with no book sales, then this episode will be perfect for you, as it will give you the steps and tools you need to get your book in the hands of your ideal customers. Some of the main topics we will be covering today include how to effectively rank in Google with SEO, how to deliver an amazing experience that drives customer retention, how to write an evergreen book in an ever-changing industry. At the end of this episode, make sure you visit our website where you can find the show notes plus the links mentioned with Damon. If you enjoyed this episode, please make sure you subscribe so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this awesome episode. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Smart Author podcast. Today I'm joined by Damon Burton from SEO National. Damon, how are you?
I'm good. What's up, everybody? Thanks for having me, Chris.
So Damon, you've been in your industry for a little bit of time now. Do you mind giving everyone a 30, 60-second catch up of what you've gone through and everything you've done to get here?
Oh man. Yeah, because there's a lot of individual paths and stories on that. So let's see if I can hyper condense it and we can go down whichever paths you want after. My background was originally design. I had a client ask me what I knew about Google. And I said, I knew enough that I can help you, but I don't know enough that I feel comfortable charging you, but I also don't want to work for free. So we worked out a deal where I said, I will work for free until we hit these benchmarks, we hit those goals, which then triggered a retainer. And I enjoyed the process. And so I offered it to another client, hit the goals again. And at that point, I very specifically and intentionally said, I'm going to do SEO and only SEO. And I've stayed in my lane. It's now 15 years since then. We got 50 team members, worked with anywhere from, we still have those two mom and pops that I just mentioned from 15 years ago, all the way up to billion-dollar businesses. I've worked with the Utah Jazz on their retail division, the Utah Jazz team store, all over the place. So it's been really cool to come from, evolve from the low end provider, solopreneur, and now kind of be more of an enterprise provider. Along the way, I've wrote a book and all sorts of other things. So that's as short as I can make it.
Dude, 15 years in the game, especially in something like SEO, which is changing quite often, right? With what Google puts out.
Yeah.
How have you found that dynamic? How do you like change and shift with the tides? Like, how do you take those challenges on?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's as you said, SEO evolves, but it kind of doesn't. And so what I mean by that is that there's primarily three core pillars, at least that I follow in SEO. So it's like, how good or bad is your website? Does it load quickly? Is it mobile friendly? Does it suck? Is it good to look at? Just basic things like that. Then the second thing is content. You can only show up on Google for what Google can read. So there's like this whole other strategy about content. And then the third one is external credibility. Do other websites talk about your website or your brand? And like, if you simplify it to those three things, and obviously there's subsets of that, but if you don't get distracted by the shiny objects and all this other stuff, you can play the safe and steady route. Like, there's probably competitors that might be able to get a head start on me and in the processes and how we roll out campaigns for our clients, but they're not going to outlast us. In the 15 years, we've never had a penalty. Our success rate is astronomical. I mean, like I said in the beginning, we still have those first two clients from 15 years ago. We probably have, I bet you we have somewhere around 10 of our out of 15 of our first 15 clients still from when they started in the last 14 to 15 year range. So like, if you just don't get distracted by the shiny objects, I think simplicity is what drives longevity and sustainability. Like, everybody else is like, what's the latest thing? How can we cut corners? And then those are the things that you get hammered by later. So we just really stick to the basics.
Yeah. So this actually brings me to the next thing that I wanted to discuss quite well. again, coming back to SEO, like a lot of people can take that and look at it and go like, that's an ever-changing technology, like, or that's an ever-changing, thing. So with that simplicity in mind, is that how you approach writing your book on SEO?
That's a really good question. Yeah, because when I wrote the book, I had to think about. So I didn't want it to be like just like a half-assed book. I didn't want it to be something for me to just say I wrote a book. Of course, it's exciting to say that, but I wanted it to be evergreen as possible. I knew it couldn't be continually evergreen, and so I tried to distill it is literally the blueprint of what we do at my agency. I just distilled it down into concepts. And so there's a lot of literal step 1, step 2, step 3, but I simplified them. So for the most part, they're future proof. So yeah, like I didn't want to write a book and then by the time I finish writing a book, it's outdated. Because it took me 2 years because the first 6 months I was excited and then I got burned out. And so I did nothing for 3 months. And then I got back on it and finished it. And then I did nothing for however long. And then the part that's the craziest is editing, because what happens is now you got a book. Like my book is somewhere around 130 pages. That's 130 pages you got to read. And then you read it. And as you're reading it, you're marking things up. And then when you're done editing it, now you have to go back and read another 130 pages because the way it worked for me was you write the book and then you go through and you look at the chapters, and then you end up moving chapter 5 to chapter 2 and chapter 3 to chapter 9 or whatever. And then you finish chapters, and then you re-edit pages, and then you re-edit paragraphs, and then you re-edit sentences. And so it's this constant cycle of rereading, and you can have other people edit, but I wanted to really make sure it protected my voice and was presented as if it were me, and not have a ghostwriter. I mean, I have nothing against ghostwriters. They're amazing. But like, I wanted to make sure that it properly represented me. So then when I come on things like this, or when I meet people that have read it, or we talk about concepts and masterminds, I know exactly what they're talking about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So for other service providers like yourself, do you have any tips on like how you went through the process of writing? Did you, like, a lot of common things are, get a Google Doc open, voice to text it, sort of brainstorm that way and sort of draft out the book that way. Did you use a similar tactic, or is any, tips you could give on how you wrote your book?
Yeah, it was more or less like that. I didn't use any specific tools, although now that I'm done, I have a friend that comes from a family of authors, and he gave me some great tools to consider for next time. So I'll share those in a minute. But yeah, you got the right idea. You just need to vomit everything out, and don't worry about the order that it's in, because that's round 2. So just get out as many ideas as you can. You're basically just like getting all the puzzle pieces out of your head and then put them together. So I basically did that. I made just like a really basic outline of, I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this, and I want to talk about this. Then I'd go back and then I'd write about that thing. And then independent of that, I'd write about the next thing. And then having nothing to do with the other parts, I'd write about the next thing. Then I'd go back and then start to sequence them and put them in an order that made sense. And then that's kind of where you get to the point where you're talking about editing, where it's like, okay, now that I have them all together, read it, and are they in the right order? So yeah, that's how I did it. Now, super briefly, because I don't have a lot of experience with these tools, but the 2 tools that my friend recommended, one was called Vellum. I think it's Vellum, and the other is Scrivener. I think it's Scrivener. And those are tools to basically do exactly what we just talked about, like write little chunks that you don't know where they go, but it helps you keep them organized. And then later you can basically drag and drop and put them into place.
Yeah, makes sense. So do you think that's, say I'm a new agency owner, do you think that there's a period of expertise that, like, is it a period of time where I build up my expertise and get client results before I even try to look at writing a book? Or do you think, like, someone who's, kind of newer to the space, do you think that they should try and write a book out of the gate? Like, what are your thoughts on, writing that? Because I know for you and your instance, it's you've obviously had an agency for 10 to 13 years before you even, considered writing a book. And then from that process, it's been a fantastic, like, you use it as a tool for lead generation for your agency. generally speaking, a
Right.
marketing asset. And so what
Right.
are your thoughts on someone who's like newer to the space going down that path? Do you just think that they have to be able to justify their results before they can go through this process?
It depends on the person and the agency. There's probably not a right answer. And it also depends on your intent with the book. So like you touched on, the way that I use my book is basically a really expensive business card. People buy it on Amazon and Audible, but I don't even look at that. It's just kind of in passing, maybe every couple of months I'm like, oh yeah, did I sell anything? And there's always a couple sales there, but what I do is I just give it away for free. And so for me, what I do is I use it as credibility. And so anytime I have a lead, if I have their address, I send them a physical book. So I come out of pocket. So I pay for the book, I pay for the shipping, I spend the time that I could be doing something else to put it together. And I actually go, when you publish this, is it on video? Because I have something I could show.
Yes. Yeah, we do video.
Okay. All right. Bear with me. 5 seconds. All right. So when I send out the book, not only is the book itself a piece of credibility, but then I really drill it home. So like I'll send it in something that stands out, right? So I'll send it out in like this gold envelope. And then let me grab one more thing. So then I'll also send it out. I put an insert in here. And in the insert, it's like, enjoy the book. Here's what went on behind it. And the hook story offer kind of thing, right? And so there's like a hook in there, and it's like, even if we don't work together, whatever, this will still help you. And so then I use this like right inside the page that I write them a handwritten note. And then once I piece this all together, it goes into one other thing. It goes into a craft envelope, and then the craft envelope goes into this. The reason why I put it in the craft envelope is because I wax stamp it. So I take the time to heat this up and then stamp it. So not only are now you respected because you're an author, but now you blow their mind in their presentation. So that alone, I get more feedback than any marketing thing that you could probably pay for. So I use it purely as a credibility tool. Now back to your question about, should people wait or jump in? It depends on your level of confidence. It depends on your industry. It depends on if you want to sell the thing. Because if you're going to sell the thing and you don't have the expertise and the proof and the results to back it up, you're going to look pretty silly. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to do it as a short form book or a white paper or just a giveaway, go for it. Write what you can, give away what you can, help what audience you can, and then revise it as you improve, revise it. So you could definitely do a more shorter form thing, but there's certainly some risk to your reputation if you go long form and you can't back it up.
I want to talk after the episode about how I can become a lead and get one of those packages, because I just want to see it in person.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I'm glad you said that, because that reminded me of something else. So I can't remember if I booked on your calendar or you booked on mine, but I have a very specific calendar, like a subset of my calendar that's like book Damon. So when I come on and do a podcast or a webinar or something, I have a separate link because I set separate rules on that calendar. And on that calendar, it has a time delay where 1 hour after our scheduled time, it sends an automated thing that says, Chris, thank you for the opportunity to be on your podcast. Well, actually, it opens funny because, of course, it's automated. So I just call it out. I'm all beep, boop. This is Damon's fancy automation. And then it's like, thanks for allowing me to come on your show and share my stories. I hope I help your audience. By the way, if you don't have it already, here's a copy of my book. And then it sends them a PDF copy. So you can use it in all sorts of things. So not only do we use it in leads, but we also use it in clients. So just like I was talking about sending it to leads, we do a very similar thing where we send it out in the gold package and the craft envelope. But the difference is inside the craft envelope, then we also have like a custom branded, white folder that we can put business cards, has a little slot for business cards. And then we put in a welcome kit. So it's like, hey, thanks for signing up. We're super stoked to work with you. Inside is where we set expectations. So take the time to read this because it's for your own benefit. And this goes down to like a whole other conversation besides just the book, but we use it to set expectations on our availability and what's coming next. And that really locks in your credibility with your clients. But with all that, with clients, we also send a copy of the book.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So can we talk a little bit more about how you market your free book, or, what you use, what other avenues you use it with?
Yeah, I mean, I use it in a lot of avenues, but they all primarily fall under the same concept of just give it away as much as possible.
Yeah.
So, I don't make a lot of money on the front end. I do get sales, but I think I've sold maybe 100 copies, like paid copies in the last 2, 3 years,
Mhm.
and then another 30 or 40 Audible copies. Um, but I have no idea how those people buy it, because I don't push people to that, because I push people to the free copy.
Yeah.
And so anytime I'm a podcast, I give it away for free. Anytime I do webinars, I give it away for free. Anytime I go to in-person events, I bring a handful of copies and I give them away for free. So it's in a lot of different opportunities, but in all of them, I just give it away for free.
Okay. Gotcha. So that's probably Amazon recommending your stuff because you probably wrote in a good description. No, I actually looked at your book yesterday. You've definitely written a good description. So
Yeah.
that's what it's from. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Well, so in the last 2 years since having a book published, how has your business like been impacted? How's your business grown from that?
We've grown a lot for a variety of reasons, and some are related to the book, some are not. So I'll focus on just the book ones, and if you want to explore the others, we can talk about that too. But with the book, because it just gives away, it solidifies so much credibility, it increases the conversion rate. And so when you get on the phone, like if you have a lead that's like iffy, well, when they get a book in the mail 2 days later, they're no longer iffy. I have one example very specifically that was she's a really high profile celebrity divorce attorney who's a client. And she was referred from somebody to download my book. And she went and bought it the same day. I don't remember if she downloaded the free copy or bought it off Amazon, but she got it the day the person told her to. And when I wrote the book, I tried to balance it with, like, SEO doesn't sound sexy, right? So like like a book about SEO. I mean, come on. So the first thing that I put in the book, the first line is, let's be honest, a book about SEO doesn't sound like the sexiest topic, right? So I just call it out. And so because of that, now the people are like, well, wait a second. And that's like the hook, story, offer kind of thing. So now they're interested. So then when they actually get into the depth of the chapters, the first chapter is storytelling. Because what I had to do is I had to go, okay, this book is basically for two audiences. One book is for the novices that have no idea what they're getting into. They just know about SEO, or they want to get into it or learn more. And then the other category is the people that already know something. So how do I balance not boring the experienced audience while not overwhelming the novice audience? So I started with stories. And so it talks about how I outranked $1 billion company when I wasn't even trying, because that's a fun story. But all of the stories reinforce the value of SEO. And then there's another story about how I got a cease and desist letter from this mega sized company because I outranked their website without even trying. And so I tried to reinforce the value of what they're getting into and plant seeds of like, well, I could do that. Or what if that happened to me? Those results would be amazing. And then ease into uh, defining the basics of SEO. So it goes fun stories. Now you take those fun stories and the general concepts and go a little bit deeper on the general concepts. Then it goes into the real specific stuff. So then I was able to kind of balance the best of all audiences. And I have no idea what the original question was that I'm trying to come back to. I'm going down the rabbit hole. What was I getting at? You remember?
No, I forgot as well. No, it was how, how's your business grown in the past 2 years since
Oh,
writing
business
or
going. Okay,
publishing?
yeah. So coming back to okay, that's it. So then coming back to the lady that I was talking about is so somebody said, you know, Damon is who you need to look into for SEO. She found the book. She told me that she consumed the entire thing the first day. That's why I was talking about stories, because I hooked her in. And so then she was referred to me on a Friday. I talked to her on Monday and she said, tell me where to sign. Like that was
So awesome.
like, I just get on, and that was, there was no pitch whatsoever, because she was able, I hooked her into the book, provided my expertise, and walked her through what could happen to her as well. And then she's since gone on. I actually go on to meet her in 2 weeks, going to go meet her in person. And so we built a great relationship. She just did this mass. I mean, she's exploded. I'm trying to like not give out like specifically who she is, but she's gone on to, when we first started with her, she was at like 50,000 YouTube views, and now she's up to 20 million and that was within like a year. And
Wow.
that she's done a lot of other stuff to her own credit on the YouTube side of things, but she just got off speaking on a massive stage a couple of weeks ago. So those are the types of things you get in. Like you get in, not only do you, so I don't monetize it on the front end, I monetize it on the back end with credibility, but then it also helps establish trust and relationships, which take you endless amounts of places.
It's so important that we like make our books engaging as well, right? Like I love the fact that you follow the hook story offer, because it's like most people, especially like I don't know, me, I'm quite a techno babbler. I know what I'm talking about when in my expertise range, and so it's pretty easy to fall into the trap of just talking about the technology or the process or like the things that we find interesting. Other people who don't know anything about the topic, like you said, they perceive SEO as like not sexy or boring or whatever. But then if you can hook them in different ways to make it engaging, to make it exciting, it helps so much with the readership of the book. And then ultimately they get an outcome, you get an outcome. It's a win-win. And so like, how can we create that engagement so there's a win in both scenarios?
Yeah, it's hard to not go down the techno babble rabbit hole. That's something I've been really intentional about the last couple of years, because when you and I are in tech industries, digital industries, because we're passionate about it, and so us rambling is us being excited, and there becomes a detachment in the listener understanding what you're saying. Like they see the excitement, but it's not clicking with them. And so I made a real intentional effort to simplify just about everything. And now another thing that you kind of bring up is I've kind of made an intentional, just like the first line where in the book where it's like SEO, let's be honest, SEO isn't sexy. And us talking about people getting distracted by the technical things, or they think whatever, whatever the stereotypes are in your industry, dude, that's my favorite thing now. Like that's the first thing I hit. So when I publish articles on big media outlets, they're always like, here's why you shouldn't trust your SEO guy. Here's the red flags to look out for the SEO guy. Here's old crappy SEO tactics that you need to avoid. And so I just did a presentation. We were talking about Russell Brunson. So I'm in his inner circle, and I just did a presentation to the rest of the group the other day. And like the third slide in, the presentation was about how to take SEO concepts and apply them to PPC, because a huge chunk of the people in funnels are big into paid ads. So I'm like, look, I just helped a bunch of people in Inner Circle. 2 of them already gave me testimonials within a couple of days. One of them increased their conversion rate by 27%. Another lowered their cost per lead from $9 to $3.80 with a thing that only took 20 minutes. And it sounds so dumb me saying that, because that's not a hook. That's really what happened. And I didn't know that was going to be the result of me giving the value. So I tell you that story because in this inner circle, I'm like, hey guys, so-and-so had those 2 results. So I just want to share it with everybody. So I'm just going to do like a webinar for you guys. Like there's no pitch or anything. I'm just helping out. And so like the second or third slide in, the first slide's like, here's what we're going to cover. And then the second or third slide says, all right, so here's how it's going to work. I'm going to bait and switch you. I'm going to give you really vague value, and then I'm going to ask you for a ton of money at the end. Ready? And then the next thing was like, just kidding, here's the answer. And then I just gave him the answer. And so those are the things, like everybody in the chat was like, ha, 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 and then that can become your platform, or at least that's what I've embraced, is all the industry stereotypes, because then it proactively diffuses them. You get a laugh, you build trust, you build expertise. So take it for what it's worth.
Yeah. So at the end, the complaints are like, are not SEO guys are shady, because like Damon comes in with just diffusing that false belief and like actually giving value.
Yeah.
Dude, I love it. So Damon, is there anything else you want to chat about before we wrap up?
I'm an open book. So I come into these just like with the book, and I just give it away. That's what's worked really well for me is not having a motive and just coming to just give. So no, I don't have anything specific to cover. No.
Awesome. Well, how do people find out a little bit more about you and what you do?
So I'm most active on LinkedIn and Facebook. So you can just look me up by my name. If you do want to learn more about the book, it is indeed free. It's at freeseobook.com. And on the thank you page, there is no upsell, at least as of today. And it just invites you to our Facebook group.
Awesome domain, by the way. Awesome. So we'll make sure that stuff's linked up in the description as well. And what a great topic today. Thank you for coming on and spending some time here.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite, Chris. Good chatting.
Damn, what an awesome episode. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing on your podcast platform of choice so you get notified every single time a new episode releases. And if you're struggling with your book sales, head over to smartauthormedia.com/audit to get a free audit of your book sales to see where we can help you bridge the gap between not many sales to a lot of sales. It's a free resource call that we have together where I give you some clear action steps that you can take to take your stuff from broken to selling. I'll see you over there. Thanks again for listening.